From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
And I'm thrilled today to introduce Molly Idle, whose whimsical books have cheered many a bedtime in my own house. Molly has been drawing ever since she could wield a pencil, she says, but she's gotten quite a bit more adept since then, and she's produced such wonderful picture books as T-Rex, Camp Rex, and probably one you recognize, Flora and the Flamingo, which was a 2014 Caldecott Honor winner. And as you know, it has no words, but it's just so much fun to go through it with your children and make your own story. In Molly's next book, which comes out next month, she has it with her, or I would be holding it up, Flora reappears again, and in another wordless adventure with a bird, except this time it's a penguin, in Flora and the Penguin. And here to tell you more about herself and her books is Molly Idle.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all here. Thanks for coming out. I noticed on the floor they've got these little lines. Do not sit behind that line. And I think you're brave to sit in front of it because I have a little bit of a cold today, so I'm hoping that it won't carry out. But I appreciate you all being here. It makes me feel better already just to be in a room of people who love picture books, because I love picture books too. And I don't know, is the screen over there showing what I'm showing on my iPad? Do you guys see what I see? Yes? Awesome. I love it when technology works, don't you? It doesn't always, so when it does, it's like magic to me. So I thought, with Flora and the Penguin coming out, I thought I would tell you guys today about how I made Flora and the Penguin. And to start telling you that story, I first have to tell you about, if my iPad will progress, and if it won't, we can stay on this slide all day long. Let's see. Maybe I need to control it from here. Yes? Did it change? Hot diggity, all right. So to tell you about making Flora and the Penguin and how the idea started, first I have to tell you about Flora and the Flamingo, because it was when we were working on this book, my editor, my art director, and I, that my art director said, you know, the way that you handle this, the water in this book, it makes me feel like it's ice. You know, it has that kind of reflection. And I said, if it were ice, she'd be dancing with a penguin. And we all went, okay, but let's finish working on this book first, and then we'll make the next one. Well, I loved working on wordless books. I do, because I come from an animation background. So I was not a writer as a kid, I was a drawer. And so the words, when I make books, always seem to be the most challenging part for me to create, whereas the pictures seem to come more naturally. That's not to say it's not hard sometimes, but I just always am more secure that I'll get there in the end if I just keep at it. People ask me when they see this book, are you a dancer? And to that I would say, my iPad is not progressing. No, to that I would say, who, me? And I would look the other way. That's not to say that my mom didn't give it her all. So I will show you this. Yeah. Well, my mom is a triple threat. She's a singer, an actor, and a dancer. And when I was little, she taught dance class, and so I took dance class. And I remember taking tap and ballet, and then it was time for my first recital. And I was in this snazzy little pink outfit that you see here. And we were all supposed to sing Me and My Teddy Bear. Do you guys know that song? The old, you do? Me and my, and we were up there on stage, and all the other little kids were, and I was just like a deer in the headlights. I didn't move. I smiled perfectly still. And I think I waved to my mom. And I remember her just sitting there like, hi, you should be dancing. But no. So when we decided to make a book about ice skating, you might think I'd be more excited. Maybe you would think that I would know something about ice skating. Mom, try number 2. it ended like this. Oh, I am just not coordinated in my gross motor skills. With a pencil, I'm pretty good, though, and that's when Mom hit third try, right? Third time's the charm. This was really wonderful. So my mom is a very creative person, and she loved to paint as well as be on the stage. And one day when she was painting, I remember asking her, can I do that? And instead of, like a lot of us as parents might do, say, well, let me get you your own paints, or let me get you some crayons, or something like that, my mom said, sure. And she took her canvas off the easel, and she put a fresh one on. Here you go. And let me have at it with her oil paints when I was like, 3 years old? It felt really good. I mean, my mom, obviously, though she dressed me in silly outfits occasionally, took me seriously. And I remember that feeling of she thought I could do whatever I wanted. If I believed I wanted to do it, she thought I could do it too. And in art, I finally did find that thing that I really enjoyed to do and learned over the course of time to do well. I don't know if you can see the painting in this picture. It's not a masterpiece, okay? I wish I could say, like, I started out, I was some sort of savant, but no, I just, they were scribbles, and the scribbles became better and better the more I drew. All right, but one thing that I learned as I was getting better drawing was that it was really important to draw from observation, to draw from real life. And that is, though I'm not a dancer, though I'm not an ice skater, that is how I start in on making these books. I draw from observation. So, diving in. I knew that the first thing I was going to need to do was I was going to need to watch ice skaters. I've always loved to watch ice skaters. Do you guys love to watch ice skaters? They make it look so easy, so effortless. And yet as I found out the hard way as a kid, it really hurts when you fall on the ice. I can only imagine all the times they've fallen and got up and tried again. So that's pretty impressive. So I started off by watching a lot of ice skaters. Luckily, the Olympics were last year, the Winter Olympics, so that provided me with some fresh material. But I also went back and watched old Sonja Henning movies. Maybe you guys remember her from the 30s. And all sorts of ice skating, and I really tried to imagine how I could choreograph an ice skating dance between Flora and her penguin friend, which meant I was also going to have to research penguins. This guy looks especially balletic right there. He looks like he's in mid-leap. Most of the time they look like this, right? They look like they're kind of feeling a little judgmental of this guy. What is Phil doing? They're saying, I want to dance, he says. But don't let these stuffed shirts fool you, because though on the ice, I wish they were as graceful as I imagine them being, but mostly they just kind of, right? They waddle a bit, and then when they do slide, it's on their tummies. But where they are really graceful is underwater, right? They can't fly. Penguins can't fly, but they use their wings in a flying action beneath the water. They dive under looking for fish, and that's when they are really graceful. And that started me thinking, gosh, they are really different. Like a human and a penguin have very different skill sets, Above ice, below ice. We would not do as well below the ice, would we? Oh my gosh, I get cold just thinking about it. But penguins, on the other hand, are in their element. And as the Flora stories are always about friendship, I started thinking back to when I was little and wondering, times when I got together with my friends and we wanted to do different things. We were good at different things, but somehow we managed to find a compromise and work together. And that's what I thought maybe this story would be about. So having done my penguin and ice skating research, I start drawing. I sit down at my desk and I take all the information that I've gotten from observation and I try and form it into my own style, but still keeping in mind the real world and the anatomy of a penguin and the anatomy of a person and the choreography of figure skating. So I started thinking, how could they have fun together? I thought, okay, if you're an ice skater, they do that really cool thing called the sit-spin, right? Where they sit and they twirl. And I thought that would be really hard for a penguin trying to grab his little foot. That wouldn't work. He would have to maneuver something differently, and so I think he literally does a sit spin, right? And then I started thinking about above and below the ice games they could play. Be fun to play tic-tac-toe. And he would want to go down, right? He would want to be O's. And that started me thinking, that is how they would be different. He would want to be below, she would want to be above. How do they find a common ground? And that's when I start trying to lay it out in the form of a book. Remember how I told you my paintings were not pretty when I was little? My sketches still don't start out pretty. They start out like this. It's just a mess. It's just a mess of rectangles that to me are like the pages of the book and the way things are spread out, but it's like taking notes. And I started to figure out where there could be flaps, where they could be above and below. And then then they get a little neater, just a little, but they're still very small. And I started playing with the idea of that above and below. And when they don't get along. And what might they not get along about? Well, have you guys ever gone fishing? How many fishing fans do we have? Yeah, a few, right? Yeah. My dad, also eager to expose me to all the things he loved when I was little, took me fishing. And that was another thing that I did catch a fish, but I wasn't super excited about it. Not the way my dad gets super excited when he goes fishing, right? And I thought, well, a penguin would be excited about fishing, and Flora maybe not so much. And would his feelings be hurt? I think they might. And how would they feel? And so I started playing, this was my first idea for the flaps and how they might interact. For those of you who have read Flora and the Flamingo, you'll know that within the book, there are flaps that change the way the characters interact with one another. And in lowering one flap or another, you can change the way that the characters interact. The reader gets to sort of choreograph their dance. And I imagined it starting this way. And then, as I was watching them do just a staying in one place change of attitude, I thought, wouldn't it be better, because skating is all about movement, if I could actually move them further apart? But how could I do that with the flaps? How could I actually move them back and forth like skaters would move back and forth? And that's when I had the idea. I would print the flaps on both sides. Well, I'll show you. So here's our friend. So I decided at this point, I have to actually start building things. I actually have to cut out pieces of paper and put them together and start playing with them in a book form. So here they are skating. And on the opposite side of that piece of paper, they skate back the other way. And they skate back and forth. But you couldn't really tell so much until I started to add in the background. Once I was sure the flaps would work, okay, it is time to add in the background. So I put them on the ice, and I added some fish for later, and tried it out again. And it worked. If you flipped the flap back and forth, they would move. Hot diggity, I was onto something. So then it's time to put things into color. This is one of my favorite parts, figuring out just the right colors to use. I work with colored pencils. I love colored pencils. I have a lot of them, as you can see. And one of my favorite things is to go through them all and make new combinations and see how I can get them to work together to make just the right color, maybe a new color, a color I've never made before. So what I will do is I will make a drawing, and I'll make it over and over, and then I will test out new things. Oh, sorry. I'll test out new combinations. So even though this book is entirely light blue with just a little bit of yellow, if you see, this is like my color cheat sheet here. Once I figure it out, I write down all the colors that I've used so I won't forget, and the orders in which I layer them. And there's like 30 different colors, but they all work together to make light blue and yellow and a little bit of peach. So then I lay out it on my desk and I start coloring. And then I thought we might go through the book together, if you guys don't mind. Now that we've taken it this far, you should see how it ends, right? Okay. And for this part, I probably shouldn't talk because there are no words in the book. So can you all see the screen? All right. We'll just go through it together then. I will go back and forth on the flat pages, though, because I like those. And then you guys have to look sharp to see if you can tell what changes when in this flap. What do you see? They got a fish. Will they catch it? Will they catch it? Well, you're just going to have to read to the end yourself. Aww. Because you have to discover the endings yourself. I could tell you. But I think it would be more fun to draw a penguin and a flamingo right now, yes? And show you guys how to do that too. All right. So that's what I'm going to do. Ooh, look at this. We have markers. This is good stuff. I'll tell you guys, so since I was little, I've been drawing and drawing like crazy. But one thing I've learned is that it's always best to start simple. Starting with simple shapes is almost always the best way. And then it lets you make changes if you don't get it exactly right the first time. So I think first we'll start with, should we start with the penguin first? And if we have time, we'll go for a flamingo after. Okay. So our little penguin friend is, you know what, I'm going to draw from this side, you guys. Righty. Oop, there we go. I always start simple. I would start with a circle for his head, yeah? And then he has like a little oval shape for his body. He's got another little oval for his eye. And I'm going to give him some triangles for his feet. And maybe a little triangle for his tail. Same thing for his beak. It's like one little triangle and then a little diamond. And then, you know, you guys play connect the dots sometimes? I connect the shapes. Oh, I forgot his wings. How could I forget that? Okay. And then we can always color in. I'm going to leave a little space for his eye here. Markers are great for fast coloring. Do you guys like markers? Me too. What do you guys think should be underneath the ice below him? What could we add that would make it interesting for him? Fish? Excellent idea. For the ice, I just do squiggly lines. And then you do some little lines in between that, and it's like a sheet of ice. And down below, fish, you say? Yeah? We better give him a way to get to them. See, just a simple shape, a little oval. Another. And down below, fish. Do you think he'll catch it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope he does. I hope he does. Maybe some little bubbles. And another fish? Okay, maybe two, yeah. I think you're right. With two of them, they could be onto the penguin. I see that penguin up there, they're thinking. And another, a whole school. We could have a whole school of these guys. And our little penguin friend could catch them all. If he's fast enough, you're right. That's right. Lots of fish. We could do as many fish as you want. But I think we should. 100 fish. Whew. Okay, we're gonna be here a while, guys, but let's start counting. Do you know, that's actually funny, because when I made the book, I thought, we have to know how many fish there are, right? I need to keep track of how many fish there are. In the book, there are 42 fish. 42 fish. Do we have any Douglas Adams fans in the audience? So long, and thanks for all the fish. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So whenever you see all the fish in the book, there are 42 fish, and you can count them. Not 100, though. That would have taken me forever. I'd still be working on it. How about a flamingo, guys? Should we do a flamingo before I take some questions? Let's not make a blue flamingo, though, shall we? Not a blue flamingo. Pardon? Oh, you didn't get to see the picture. Okay, there's not 100 fish. Don't be disappointed. Just 3 fish. Little penguin, but now we shall do a flamingo. Oh, yes, absolutely. Here, if I can tear it off. There we go. Ah, there we go. Thank you. Now, flamingos. I'll switch around to the other side so you guys get to see, and then we'll turn. All right, flamingos. Again, I start with simple shapes for flamingos. You know what? Now I've looped myself to this easel here. All right. I start a black flamingo. That's very chic, don't you think? All right. Here we go. I'm going to start with a simple shape. Circle again. Most of my things start with circles. Then we need an oval. Just like that. But they're a little further apart this time, aren't they? Because flamingos have really long necks, don't they? Let's not forget his wing, like I forgot that poor penguins. And again, a little triangle down here is going to be where his tail goes. Do you know, I think that's a really good idea. Let's do that. Let's give him a long leg. And they have a triangle at the top, a little diamond in the middle. They have legs, skinny knee, then skinny leg, and then another triangle at the bottom. But that just gives him one. He needs another, doesn't he? Yeah. So we'll do another triangle that goes all the way through and off down here. Do you know why they stand on one leg? They're keeping one foot warm while the other foot's in the water. And then they switch when the other one gets cold. So they're constantly doing this, trying to get warm because their legs are so skinny. Okay. All right. Yeah, if they stood both of them, they would just freeze. Then they would be blue flamingos, right? Not pink. All right, now we're gonna give him a beak. And his beak is like a little cylinder, like a can, with a little curve on the end that we can color in. Fish in the water again. Do you know they actually eat shrimp? Flamingos eat shrimp, and that is why they are pink.
Yeah, I learned that in a little book, but there has to be a lot.
And then again, we can just play, connect the shapes. No, I guess we don't even really need to color, but we should give him something. Maybe we'll give him a flower, like is in the book. A little flower that's fallen there. There we go, and we have a flamingo. But it's all simple shapes. Another flower. 100 flowers? We'll put some flowers above him, like in the book, too.
Above him?
There were flowers in the trees above him in the book. Oh, a frame. Well, they do sort of frame. In the book, they frame the pictures, sort of like curtains frame a stage. So, for their dance. And now, I think we have time for a few questions. Do any of you guys have questions? And if you do want to ask some, you could walk around to the microphone and use the microphone to ask a question. Yes? Go ahead. Would you want to go use the microphone so everybody can hear you? Or if you just want to tell me, then I can repeat it.
I like the story and I like the detail.
Thank you. She said she likes the story and she likes the detail. All right. We've got a question over here.
What inspired you to write Flora and the Flamingo?
What inspired me to write Flora and the Flamingo? What a great question. Thank you. Well, it was a couple things, actually. One is that my son Tom was just learning to talk. Bigger words, bigger than just mom and dad. And one day he asked me, Mom, do we have a fire stinking shirt? A fire stinking shirt? You know, in case of emergencies, he says to me. Oh, you mean a fire extinguisher? Yeah. Oh, yeah, we've got one. We're good. But it occurred to me that that's what we do when we're really small, right? We try and make sense out of these big words that we don't know by putting together some smaller ones that we do. And I tried remembering things that had seemed difficult to me or that made no sense to me when I was a kid. Like, for years, I thought flamenco dancing, do you know that dancing with the castanets and all that? Was flamingo dancing. And I remember being so confused. They're not dressed like flamingos. They don't do the flamingo pose. They're not even wearing pink most of the time. You know, like what in the world does this have to do with flamingos? Of course, now I know. But I still thought the idea of dancing with a flamingo was a really good idea. And then my son John started kindergarten that same year. And I was watching him going through the process of making friends. That back and forth that you see somebody that you kind of like, and maybe you want to be like them. So you start trying to copy them, and then do they like that or do they not like that? It was this lot of back and forth. And that back and forth reminded me of a dance. Maybe you're good at that kind of dancing, maybe you're not. I remember not being a very good dancer, and I also remember it being hard to make friends. And I thought that's what I would do. I'd make a book about friendship told through dance. That was the idea. I think we've got time for one more. Yes, sir.
While you were writing Flora and the Flamingo and Flora and the Penguin, were you listening to the music that they were dancing to, or was it just in your head?
That's a really good question. You know, with the first book, I hadn't been consciously listening to a particular soundtrack, but we were working hard to pace it out like a waltz, so that there are 2 pages without flaps, and then a third page or a third set of illustrations with. So you would get that da 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 dum dum dum, the flip flop, flip-flop. And when I did this one, I was working with a 3/4 beat in my head. And now I'm working on Flora and the Peacocks. And I have been listening to something very specific. Do you guys know the Habanera from Carmen? Dun, 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 dun. That seems like a Flamingo kind of piece of music to me, or a Peacock piece of music to me. But I do think of it in terms of rhythm. Even though I'm not listening to necessarily a specific song all the time, I am thinking in terms of musical meter when I'm working with it. Because it's a bit of choreography, so it has to be. And I think, do we have time for one more? Oh, we're out of time, you guys. But I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you so, so much. And enjoy the rest of the festival.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.